Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Planning Commission on whatever date this is. August 18th at 6 o'clock. Carla, would you please do a roll call for us?
Commissioner Sparks. Commissioner Berman. Commissioner Gilardi.
Here.
Vice Chair Long.
Here.
Chair Moffitt.
Here. Okay. Please rise for a land acknowledgement.
Madam Chair, may I speak on this issue?
Yes, you may.
Thank you so much, Madam. Carla? Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I just want to thank you again all for serving. You know, I don't think people say that to you enough. My name is George Barrich. I'm a former city councilman here in Cotati. And Ms. Moffitt, I just want to let you know it's a pleasure to see you as chair once again. I'd like to speak on land acknowledgement. Before I go into the land acknowledgement itself, just procedurally, I'd like you to recommend to you to move this land acknowledgement while it's still on the agenda to the end of the meeting, as has the City Council, and for good reason. It's been embarrassing the public, it's been embarrassing the City Council, and if you move it to the end, most likely there'll be less, if no citizens in the room to have to endure this racist and asinine land acknowledgement. Just move it to the end until we find a way to get rid of it once and for all. Follow the City Council's lead. It's a move in the right direction because they're going to have to do some soul searching on how far they want to keep embarrassing themselves in the community. As the land acknowledgement itself, as I've said a few times in the past, it's racist, it's silly, it's not historically accurate. I want to go down the fact road, and the fact that, let's take a little quick look at it again. Again, I think it's kissing up to the casino interests who are continually to look at new properties in the county to expand their ability to rape millions of dollars out of the community for their own profits. So Cotati is still on a radar, and if you remember, the casino interests came to Cotati first, asking to get into talks and negotiations to bring a casino to Cotati. When Pat Gilardi and a few other people on the council said, no, we're really not interested, only to find out that the casino went and negotiated with Rohnert Park, and the rest is history. At that point, Cotati asked the city manager, Diane Thompson, to please draft a letter to the casino to bring them back, maybe to change their mind. I had told them that they didn't listen to me, and that would be unadvisable, that the casino would not entertain your attempt to get them back. And sure enough, I was right, which embarrassed the city again. But the land acknowledgement itself, as political pandering, is really what it is to the casino, to make sure that we get some mitigation money for traffic and other things, or to possibly stay in their good graces. It says here that there's these ancestral lands of the coastal Miwok, who are the original caretakers of the area. It's not historically accurate. No foundation for this. No foundation has ever been presented to the community or the city council. It's just a bunch of poppycock and hyperbole. We acknowledge the indigenous people, which is racist in and of itself. The land acknowledgement probably should say land acknowledgement and acknowledgement to indigenous people. Then we could clearly spell out it is racist. Carving out one set of acknowledgement for a group of people, which is what it is. Okay, so this is just a lot of false listing, false heading. The acknowledgement does not take the place of authentic relationships with indigenous communities, but serves as a gesture of respect to the land. We don't, as our culture, as humans, we don't pay respect to inanimate objects, microphones, podiums, lights, land. We pay respect to people for what they've done, their potential, and so forth. So this is very intellectually...
Yeah, your time's done.
Intellectually dishonest. Thank you.
I did forget to mention, because I did receive a notification, that we're no longer going to be doing the 30-second warning in the middle of public comment. So just pay attention to the lights. They'll turn to yellow when someone has 30 seconds remaining, and then the mic will mute when your time is up. Carla, is there anyone on Zoom who wants to talk about land acknowledgements?
Thank you, Chair Moffett. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you would like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon, or if you're dialing in, dial *9. Chair Moffett, that will end public comment.
Thank you, Carla. Please rise for the land acknowledgement. The city of Cotati recognizes we're on the ancestral lands of the coastal Miwok, who are the original caretakers of this area. We respectfully acknowledge the indigenous peoples who have been stewarding and maintaining a relationship on this land as knowledge keepers for millennia. This acknowledgement does not take the place of authentic relationships with indigenous communities, but serves as a gesture of respect to the land we are on. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's move along to approval of minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes of the May 19th, 2025 meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 That's unanimous. Next up, we have changes to the agenda. Mr. Hausch?
There are no changes this evening.
Thank you. Next, we have public comment. So now is a time for public comment on anything not on the agenda. And let's go for our Zoom attendees first this time.
Thank you, Chair Moffett. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon or dial *9. Chair Moffett, there's no public comment on Zoom.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the room who'd like to have a public comment on anything not on the agenda? Please come forward.
Chair Moffett explained that we no longer have any 3-minute warning marks to assist the speakers that our time is running out. I've spoken at many different government agencies and public workshops over the years. I've been invited to speak at other cities and other counties. I've seen a number of different technologies used to help the speakers and the commissioners to move along with an effective time counting system. This one's weak. I think the one that you had before, if it's possible to re-look at it, to have Carla simply give a little 30-second warning, worked well for me, okay? Just take that into consideration. Some cities have the lights up here because we're looking at you, our eyes are going here, not up that little green light in the corner of the room. So this one isn't as helpful either. So I would ask you to allow Carla to remind some of us who are really concentrating sincerely on you and our message, to get our message across, and not keeping an eye on the clock as closely. Many of us do not want to go over time. Okay, we do not want to insult the proceedings with going over time. We do want to sum up our statements in a timely fashion without being cut off hard. So this change in policy, I don't think is prudent. I would ask you to relook at allowing Carla to give her a genuine and polite reminder that we're running out of time here. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward.
Yes, good evening, Planning Commission. Neil Hancock. I'd just like to say that the fair over the weekend, the Accordion Festival, I think went very, very well. It was very well attended. There was a lot of good spirit there, quite amazing. The other area that I think's worked out really well just outside Cotati is the Southwest Boulevard and the way that that has changed within Roanoke Park. But that's very much a safer area, I think, now for everybody using it, including pedestrians and bicyclists. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to make a public comment? No? Okay. Moving on to matters at hand.
Thank you, Chair Moffett. Members of the commission, my name's J.P. Harries. I'm a senior planner with the city of Cotati. And tonight we're talking about what we call the 120 East Cotati Affordable Housing Project. You're here tonight just to review the materials. We've been working on this project for, well, probably about a year now. It's a non-discretionary project in the end, so we'll take your feedback and we'll provide it to the city manager, who is putting together a document which I'm going to talk about called the disposition and development agreement. And so your comments may be folded into this agreement that we have with the developer. So we're asking you to make comments, but the project itself is a ministerial action level project, meaning it's a by right development. Next slide, please, Carla. So it's an affordable housing project, and it's on city-owned land. This land is that vacant land directly across the street from the fire station. It's proposed to be 44 units and 3,850 approximately square feet of commercial space. That commercial space will be largely located along La Plaza from the frame shop down around the corner there. And I also, before I get too far into this presentation, I want to say that mine's kind of brief and a high-level presentation. The applicant is here as well, which has a much more in-depth presentation on the design and the architecture and the process. Of those 44, all units, with the exception of a manager's unit, are intended to be affordable for those with households with 30 to 80% of the area medium income, AMI, it's often abbreviated as. And 12 of those 44 units will be dedicated to supportive housing, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. The proposal itself is three-story. I mean, the building itself is three-story. The first floor is an indoor parking garage, the lobby area for the residential component, and the commercial units, as well as mechanical equipment. All the housing is on the second and third levels, and also on the second level, kind of above the parking garage, is a landscape courtyard with the playground. And what you can't see there because of the closed caption is that it's a ministerial approval. This is a by right development. I'll explain why in a little bit. And anyway, next slide, please. So just some history about how we got to where we're at with this project. Back in 2020 and 2021, we approved two projects called La Plaza View. This was the second of the two. We had first approved the two-story structure project and then ultimately approved the three-story because they needed more units to make the project pencil. This project was entitled, though never built. And then next slide. Then in 2022, a applicant came forward with an SB 35. This is a way of getting a project, and it's tied to your RHNA, how well you're meeting your regional housing needs assessment. And it proposed a 70-unit project, 5 stories. Obviously doesn't have any of the architectural features that Cotati promotes. Well, I would just say that the city and the neighbors and many people raised quite an alarm about this type of project right downtown Cotati. They indicated that, the developer indicated that they'd be willing to sell the project. And next slide. And in December of 2023, the city purchased the land. They purchased the land using our Affordable Housing Fund monies. And consistent with the Surplus Land Act, it must be developed as affordable housing, and also the fact that we use affordable housing funds. So the city purchased with the property with the intent to find a developer that was qualified to do this type of development and secure the funding necessary for this type of development. So in March of 2024, we issued an RFQ for a qualified developer, and in June of 2024, the city selected Freebird Development, and Robin is here from Freebird Development. And we also then entered into an exclusive negotiating agreement, which kind of set the framework for where we're at today, which is developing a project and the conditions of which will kind of negotiating framework and conditions that will go into the disposition and development agreement, which Damien is working on with Freebird Development as we speak. So your feedback tonight will be relayed to Damien and the City Council, and then they will consider any of that in their development agreement. And then September, what you can't see there is September through December, we had 2 community meetings. These were held here at City Hall. They were well attended, largely from people at the Charles Street Village, but mostly folks that live along Charles Street took a large interest in it. Excuse me. And then also we went to the City Council in December, and through those meetings, there was a lot of discussion about design, and there were options that were presented, kind of large ideas, and then narrowed it down. And ultimately, the public and the City Council kind of chose to go with this mission-style design that we have coming forward today. Next slide, please. So when we looked at this, just high level, we look at chapter 17.39. These are objective design standards. Supportive housing has to comply with objective design standards because it is a ministerial project, so there's no room for discretion. And these design standards, the staff report talks about some of them, but there's quite a few, and they deal with building placement, orientation, articulation, design, and they leave no room for guessing. They're very specific about what they say. For example, one of them says it should have a 4-inch wood trim, all windows and doors. This particular project does not have the wood trim, which is consistent with mission-style design. So it's okay. For us, it's okay, in part because also, one, they can have that as a concession, but also the downtown specific plan is our specific plan, which has actually higher level, what's the word I'm looking for? Hierarchy is higher than our zoning code. So what's in our specific plan allows for mission style design. It gives parameters for what mission style should look like. And it's consistent with the mission style. So the 4-inch trim is not a big deal because the hierarchy level of the downtown specific plan takes precedent. But it also does have some objective design standards, such as a 35-foot height limit, 20-foot rear setback, and 2 parking spaces per unit. I highlight those 3. There's several others, but I highlight those 3 because there'll be some concessions given to this because of the nature of the project. Next slide, please. So this is a density bonus law project, meaning it's eligible for increased density and concessions and waivers from design standards because it has an affordable housing component to it. It also provides its own different parking minimums, and I didn't put them on the slide, but if you look at packet page 11, they're in there and they're described. So it's a 100% affordable housing project, and it's also located in an area that's considered a very low vehicle travel area. And to explain that would be a little complicated, but it has to do with VMT, vehicle miles traveled, and that area comparison to the rest of the city VMT. So it's a lower area of vehicle miles traveled for the residents that live within this traffic analysis zone that SCCTA manages. So anyway, because it's in a very low vehicle travel area as defined by state law, and it's a 100% affordable housing project, there's no limits on density. So they can go as dense as they want to go. Right now, per our zoning, it's 19 units an acre, which would allow 16 units. As we said, it's 44 units. So it's close to 51 units per acre. Would be the density of this project. It also gets 5 concessions and an automatic 3-story height increase if it wants it, take advantage of it. So here we have a 35-foot height limit, and they're proposing a building at its top peak most would be 47 feet 6 inches. That's granted automatically. And they're requesting a 10-foot rear setback versus the 20-foot setback. That's really a waiver that we must give because they wouldn't be able to meet their density if they met that setback. I will say on that note, they've designed the building so that the second and third story are 30 feet away from the property line. So like, even though they have this additional height, it's not near the property lines that actually impact other people's properties. And I don't know what that said there, and I don't have my thing. I think that said no wood door trim was one of the other that would be a concession. Okay, next. Supportive housing. So there, like I said, 12 units will be dedicated to supporting housing. The intent, according to Freebird, is that this will be for intellectual and developmental disabilities, but also people that are experiencing or threatened with homelessness that require supportive needs, services, would be eligible for supportive housing as well. So it's got a targeted population of people with disabilities or homelessness, and it requires on-site or off-site services to assist these people in retaining housing, improving their health, and basically just being able to work and live in the area. There, in 2018, AB 2162 was made into law, which says that any housing project with the greater of 25% or 12 units is a by right development in a multifamily district area or a mixed-use district area such as this. It's also subject to streamlined review with tight timelines. Because we're the landowner, we've gone through this very public process, and so while we're not really doing a streamlined 60-day review, it is still a by right development. And then because it is a by right development, a ministerial, technically it is not a project under CEQA, and so thus is not subject to CEQA. Next slide. And then I want to thank Commissioner Sparks for asking a question about the trees, because there was an error, or maybe it was an oversight in the recommended conditions of approval, which failed to identify the need to mitigate for the loss of trees. Typically, we would approach this through a tree removal permit, and make findings for that. But because of this unique way that this project is being approved, it was an oversight. So there will be a new condition of approval that we're going to recommend, which would require them to, just like the city or any other applicant removing trees, would have to pay the mitigation. They are removing, I can't remember the exact number, but they're required to plant 82 trees, or that would be the mitigation requirement. We're giving them credit for 2 because the other trees are all oaks, and oak trees must be replaced with oak trees, and if they can't be replaced with oak trees, then they go to this in lieu fee. So it works out to about a $10,500 mitigation requirement in today's, under our fees today. And with that, I'm going to end my presentation. I'd recommend that we go to the applicant's presentation, and then we're available for comments, questions, and anything else.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robin Zimbler. I'm the founder of Freebird Development, one of the, or I should say the developer of the project. If you could go to the next slide. Thanks for having me tonight.
Thanks for being here.
Well, I'll go ahead and introduce Paul now, although you're on the next slide. Paul's the architect, so he's going to be speaking tonight as well during the presentation. Just to give a quick preview of what we're going to go over tonight, and I will try not to repeat what JP said, but there will be some repeating of information. But we're going to, already went through the introductions, we're going to quickly go over the process to date because JP already covered most of it. Talk a little bit about our development program goals and design goals for the site, which have been guiding us since day one. Recap our prior meetings that we had, community meetings and the city council meeting. Discuss our current plans. Talk specifically about our planning permit application, which I know that JP already went through a lot of it, so some of that will be a recap, and then take any questions. Next slide. All right, that's me and Paul. Sam and Adon are also part of the design team, but we have just Paul here tonight. Next slide. So this is the process to date, and JP already went over it, so I'm not going to go over it in detail other than to say we did sign our exclusive negotiating agreement with the city last July, so about a year ago. We then quickly embarked upon a community engagement process. We had our first meeting in September, our second meeting in November, followed that up with the city council hearing in December meeting, I should say. It was informational only. There was no action taken in December. And then we submitted our planning application in January of this year. So there's been about 8 months since then. The reason for the time between January and now is really twofold. One was after one of the comments that we've received a lot from community members and the city council was a desire to see a robust transportation impact study given concerns with pedestrian and bike safety, movements in and out of our parking garage. So we wanted to take the time to do that analysis and hire a third-party consultant. I'll give you the results of that later in this presentation. We also had a few fire department related comments that we needed to work through. That took us all through probably about April or May. And then the way that affordable housing financing works is this project will need state funding in order to be feasible. And the state funding applications are once a year. And that application was due in March of this year. And since we had already missed the 2025 cycle, we decided to wait until summer was over in hopes that we would get a bigger turnout at this hearing today. To have this hearing, since we weren't up against any hard deadlines for getting your input and getting that input incorporated in our planning application finalized for the funding application starting in early 2026. Next slide. So the development program goals that were part of our original RFP response and that we've been talking about since day one are we really want to leverage the location of the project. We understand 70 units. The SB 35 proposal that came into the city we do not think it was appropriate for the site, but at the same time, this is a great site. It's an important site for the city of Cotati, and it'll help the city meet their RHNA numbers. So we also thought 27 units. The original proposal for the site was a little too small, and 70 was a little too much. So we really wanted to create a building. We thought 3 stories looking around is appropriate for Cotati. Anything higher we had concerns about. So we were trying to basically integrate this building into the downtown site while also getting enough density to make it worth developing, and to justify, the money that the city has already put into the project. So what you'll see here today is a 44-unit project. That's 3 stories. We've also, another development program goal is serving a broad range of incomes and household sizes. So we're really targeting income tiers up to 60 or 80% of the area median income. I have some slides. I know we're focused on design tonight, but I have some slides at the end of this presentation. If you want to know what that means in terms of rent and income, we can share that. What we're proposing is a mix of studios, 1s, 2s, and 3-bedroom units. So it's a family size units in the project. Pretty even distribution, if I recall correctly, of studios, 1s, 2s, and 3s. So I know we have at least 25% 2s and 25% 3s. As JP touched upon, we are proposing that 25% of the units be set aside for permanent supportive housing. JP had mentioned people with intellectual and developmental disabilities or homeless. I think he was just mentioning that the program that we're using for streamlined approval allows for permanent supportive housing for those types of populations, but we are specifically proposing people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's a population that's kind of near and dear to my heart. When I started Freebird 7 years ago now, I have an adult nephew who has autism. I see my sister's struggles to house him. He's 24 years old on a day-to-day basis. He's, can function, he can hold a job, but he can't find housing. So it's a population near and dear to my heart. In order to be competitive for state funding these days, you pretty much need to provide 25% permanent supportive housing anyway. So like I said, it's a population I like to serve in my projects. I have 2 other projects, one that we completed a couple years ago, one that's under construction now in Healdsburg, that's serving that population, working with North Bay Housing Coalition, North Bay Regional Center. The other benefit that we have for providing units for that population is they have a low degree of car ownership. So it helps justify some lower parking ratios. They might have needs for parking during the day if they have an aide or a family member visiting them. But a lot of times these are people who are living independently. They're people who have jobs. They take public transportation to their jobs, and they don't have any overnight parking needs. So their parking needs really don't drive up your need for parking in a project. And lastly, we have the goal of being a good neighbor through both our community engagement and our design of the project, all the way really through construction and operations. Next slide. So in terms of the design goals, as I mentioned, we're really trying to maximize the housing on this site while limiting it to 3 stories and also being in keeping with its surroundings. So we are trying to articulate the buildings to relate and transition to their surrounding context. So when you see our plans, you'll see that on either ends of the building, while the building itself is 3 stories, we are stepping down to 2 stories to respect those owners who are already on either side of us on Charles and La Plaza. Activate the public streets with a lobby and commercial space. So again, when you see the plans, you'll see all along Cotati Avenue and then wrapping onto La Plaza. We have a retail space. We do have the garage entry, and then we have our property management offices, our lobby, all activating that street level. Provide an adequate amount of parking. We'll get into those numbers in a second. Incorporate indoor and outdoor community spaces. So again, you'll see with our design, we have a large podium courtyard and also some indoor spaces for our residents that we can also make available to neighbors on a reservations basis, a community room. And lastly, to design the project to be environmentally conscious. Next slide. So just to provide a quick overview of the community engagements that we've had, community engagement meetings we've had to date. So again, our first one was back in September, a little less than a year ago. It was an introduction to our development team. Again, we discussed our development goals and our design goals, much like similar to the ones that we presented just now in those last 2 slides. And then we had breakout groups. We had 2 breakout groups, one in this room, one in the room across the hall, where we had a survey that showed a whole bunch of different images of different architectural styles, really to get a feel for what people wanted to see on the site. And yeah, there were some modern styles, there were some craftsman, mission, what else was there, Victorian, a whole bunch of different architectural styles, and trying to get an idea for, because we don't like to walk into a community and think that we know what they're going to want to see there. So that was really the focus of the first meeting. The second meeting was in November of 2024. We provided a recap of the first meeting. We went over the survey results, because not only did we have the breakout sessions to talk about the architectural preference surveys, we also had some comment cards where people wrote on those and gave us some ideas as to what they would like to see. So based on those design surveys and comment cards, we did some work and presented some early design concepts, and got feedback from residents on those early design concepts. I think at that meeting, we actually presented 2 different design options based on the surveys. One was a craftsman style, one was mission. Actually, I think we had 2 versions of craftsman, 1 version of mission. Both of those meetings were attended by about 20 people, and there was a lot of overlap between the 2 meetings in terms of who attended. And primarily, they were either residents adjacent to the site or across the street from the site, including many faces I see here tonight. Thank you for coming again. As I mentioned, there was a general preference for the mission style over the craftsman style, and there were concerns expressed about the parking garage access from East Cotati Avenue and the loss of on-street parking. There was also, general concerns about pedestrian and bicycle safety, and then also questions about what kind of retail, commercial statements, like, there will be no liquor store, and there will be no liquor store there. Next slide. So now I'm going to have Paul present what we presented at the city council meeting back in December, because it provides a pretty good context and springboard for what our current plans are now.
Okay, thank you, members of the commission. JP. We took our cues for the site from the points of access that we have. What we're seeing in this diagram here in the gray is an interior parking garage with an access off of Cotati Avenue and an access off of Charles Street. This is an interior garage, and on the sides of the building that face the street, the frontage, we've created the active uses that Robin mentioned. So we've got a retail zone off of La Plaza, and the idea is that since there's a generous amount of retail on that street, we really wanted to continue that and extend the commercial district that was there. Mid-block is the garage entrance, and then beyond that, on the intersection of Cotati and Charles, you could see we've got our space for the lobby for the building. Again, we wanted to activate that corner. We've got management offices on the corner, and then the entrance is slightly more towards the middle of the block, where the lobby is located on plan in dark blue. Next slide, please. 44 units provided, as Robin mentions. We've got a roughly even mix of studios, 1s and 2s and 3-bedroom apartments. So what we're looking at in the diagram here, the orange blocks represent the apartment units. In the area behind that, you'll see a gray and green area. This is essentially the roof of the parking garage below that becomes a terrace that can be used by the residents on the 2nd floor. We've also got a common room that's in the middle of the space. The idea is that this will be for resident use, and if there's larger events, you can open the doors and have spill-out space onto the courtyard. The podium will be landscaped with some screening landscaping. We'll also be bringing down stormwater from the roof and treating that on the podium in planters. In addition, we'll have amenities like a children's play area, outdoor seating, and so forth. So this would provide a big chunk of the open space. We've got about 13,500 square feet of open space total on the project. Next slide. As we continue to the third floor, again, as Robin mentioned, we pulled back the height against the neighbors to reduce the bulk of the building along La Plaza, where we're abutting the neighbors, and also along Charles Street. And beyond that, the units stack as they were on the second floor. Next slide. We had an extensive process of review in the community meetings. We really wanted to hear the preferences and the feedback of the community, and came up with several different styles. This was really what we're seeing right now is the one that was most heavily preferred by the community, what we're calling a mission style, that will be using plaster walls with deep openings, some of the characteristics you'd see in mission style, like a clay tile roof, exposed rafters, Juliet balconies and trellises, and a tower element that marks the entry. Next slide. And this is a view, sorry, the former view was the intersection of Charles and Cotati. This is turning the corner around to La Plaza, and you can see in the foreground the existing bus stop that's there, the large pergola, is intended to remain, so our building would step behind that, and then that would be our more active retail frontage, the corner, which is a great place to have a retail entry. It's very prominent right across from the plaza, and that treatment of active uses continues along Cotati Avenue, and you can see the garage in the middle there. It's off in the background there. Next slide. So when we presented to the City Council last time, we had some feedback. Generally, there was support for the massing and the idea of stepping down to the neighbors. We had an earlier scheme where we didn't step down and we had more units, and that was a change that was made. We, as Robin mentioned, we had gotten a lot of feedback from a traffic and transportation study, which we used to confirm the location of the garage entrances that we had, and also provide us numbers for bicycle parking on the site. The City Council was favorable towards the architectural style, with some differences of opinion. Generally, the council wanted to see a bit more color in the building, and we did a revision, which we'll show in a minute, that increases the amount of color on the facade. And then finally, you know, we talked a little bit about the uses that would be available in the retail, and the desire for community serving tenant. So with that, we keep rolling here. Okay. Okay, next slide.
So just again, what Paul just presented was what was presented to City Council, and we did make some changes, although not many changes as a result of that meeting. So what you'll see right here is the current site plan. It has not changed much from what was presented at City Council. I think some of the changes that you'll see here that weren't on that site plan that was on the presentation earlier is we are now showing a 10-foot wide sidewalk along East Cotati Avenue that was currently 5 feet. Along with, it doesn't show up in this site plan, but along with street trees. Unfortunately, there's utilities running all underground, existing utilities running underground where that sidewalk is, so we can't do street trees and wells, but we can do, you know, street trees and above ground planters, so that's what we are planning for along East Cotati Avenue. Along Charles, we're also showing a 10-foot sidewalk there. We can do the street trees and wells. Right now, there is no sidewalk at all there. There is on the east side of Charles, but there isn't on the west side. Some other changes, again, not significant, but on the La Plaza side, I think we ended up making a little bit of revisions to that end of the building just to create a more usable courtyard space on the second floor on top of the podium. So if you can go to the next slide. Again, we stuck with the Mission architectural style, since that was the one that we had gotten the most preference for in our community engagement meetings. But we also understood the council's comments about wanting it to be a little bit livelier, introducing some color. Having said that, yeah, that for whatever reason is showing up way brighter than it does on my screen, but oh, you have okay. Yeah, I mean, so, we had, believe it or not, many conversations among the design team about how to make this livelier while still not having the building have an identity crisis. Bright colors and Mission style aren't always like the best fit, but that Mission style does. We were always, along on that archway there, had some blues in there, and the tiles of the blue tiles. We thought that blue color would be a nice color to kind of bring out and help break up the facade and make it a little bit livelier. So that's where things stand right now with the colors, but we would love to hear your feedback as well on that. While we're still on the slide, one thing I wanted to point out that we'll get to in a couple of slides is just, again, the JP had mentioned that there's a 35-foot height limit usually in the zone, and that one of the concessions we were requesting was to increase the height limit. I just wanted to point out that even in this design, our roof line is at 37 feet, so it's just 2 feet difference. What's 47 is going up in height on that tower, for instance, to kind of create the visual interest that we're trying to go for. But I just wanted to clarify that the roof line is not at 47. The roof line is at 37, 2 feet higher than I got that right, Paul? Yep. All right, next slide. So this is the other corner again. That looks way brighter than hopefully it does down there. But again, keeping with the Mission style, but introducing this not that quite bright blue into the design. We thought did create some visual interest at the same time, keeping with Mission style. All right, next slide. So again, going back to the one thing that we also have kind of focused on more since our city council hearing was programming this podium, the podium courtyard. So again, this is on top of the parking garage, and creates that kind of setback between the adjacent neighbors and the bulk of the building. So it's kind of hard to see because of the closed captioning, but where you, on the right side, you see that there's no pointer either, huh? Oh, okay. There's mostly units on this floor, but we do have our community room, so it's about 1,000 square feet, I think. Community room up on the right side. Hopefully, maybe I don't know if there's a picture in your packet, but so then that community room would open up onto the courtyard, and on that side of the courtyard, we really have a lot of seating, tables for people to have, formal seating, also some benches on the right side of the podium, and then at the bottom of the podium is where, again, it's hard to see with the closed captioning, but that's where our more active uses would be, where there would be a kids play equipment. These are just examples of equipment that we could put in that spot. Again, our funding sources require us to have equipment for 5 to 12-year-olds as well as 2 to 5-year-olds, so there would be a variety of play equipment down there. And then one of our neighbors has come to a lot of our community meetings and very concerned, rightfully so, about what that fence would look like, making sure that people in our on our podium aren't looking down, throwing things on his yard, etc. I don't see him here tonight, but we included an example of what the fence could be like, an attractive, wood fence that doesn't have an opening between the slats, so people aren't looking down into his yard. All right, next slide. So as I mentioned, from like January until April, I think it was, we kind of did a deeper dive into transportation. And again, on the left side of the screen right now, you see what I had already mentioned in terms of the widening of the sidewalks and the street trees. We are also undergrounding the power lines along East Cotati Avenue. So wanted to point that out. The transportation impact study, in all of our community engagement meetings, there was no great answer. There was concerns about access to our parking garage from East Cotati Avenue. There was also concerns about safety crossing Charles Street. So we did, hire a third-party consultant to kind of review past collision history, et cetera, and make recommendations, really not knowing what they were going to say. We were surprised to hear that there's been no pedestrian or bike crashes reported during the past 5 years. They studied 3 intersections. They studied they studied Cotati Avenue and Charles. They started Cotati Avenue and La Plaza, and then I guess they studied Cotati Avenue and yes, Old Redwood Highway. Okay, yeah. So, and there were no pedestrian or bike crashes reporting during that 5-year period. The intersections that they studied all had collision rates lower than the statewide average, except for East Cotati Avenue and Charles. That was nominally higher than the statewide average, not by much, but what their findings said was basically that the collisions that were happening at East Cotati Avenue and Charles, and this might not be a surprise to people who live there, were basically rear-ending cars at the stop sign. Cars going north on Charles and rear-ending cars stopped at the stop sign. I think they had 4 collisions in the 5-year history, and 3 out of 4 of them were rear-ending at the stop sign going north on Charles. So they determined that, because we kept on going back and forth, should we only have an entrance on East Cotati? Should we only have an entrance on Charles? Should we have an entrance on both? What's the best solution? And they felt pretty strongly that given that Charles intersection was the only one that, was nominally higher than the statewide average, they felt strongly that we should not have only one entrance on Charles. Like that, they felt like that the East Cotati Avenue entrance was a safe entrance to the site, that both East Cotati Avenue and the Charles entrance had sight lines that would be fine, had queuing space. And so we have kept our parking access as it was presented to City Council based on that feedback. So we are still showing the parking access from East Cotati Avenue and Charles. Next slide. This slide might be a little bit hard to read. I feel like I'm at the eye doctor, which I was last week and I failed, but anyway. This slide, well, especially hard to read up on the screen because of the closed captioning, but this is just showing what roadway striping improvements would need to be made to be able to take that East Cotati Avenue sidewalk from 5 feet in width to 10 feet in width. So again, our transportation consultant, it was W-Trans, they noted that currently the parking lane, the bike lane, and the drive aisle are all oversized by city requirements and standards. So they had recommended taking a little bit of space from each of those in order to make a 5-foot sidewalk 10 feet wide. So hopefully, can you guys see down there okay. All right, hopefully you can see that.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's on page 79 of your packet,
Okay.
if you want to look at the image, 78 and 79.
So yeah, they thought it was appropriate to take a little bit of space from each of those, from parking, bike, and the drive aisle. They're all still within the standards and safety standards, et cetera, as to widths. We wouldn't have to touch the median at all, which would become more complicated and costly. So that was their recommendation. Next slide. So just, again, some of this JP already talked about, but we have applied for our planning permit. The planning permit included the supportive housing streamlined approval process, a density bonus, design review, and multifamily objective design standards. As JP had gone through, the supportive housing streamlined approval is for projects that are all affordable up to 80% of AMI and include a 25% set aside for permanent supportive housing. You also, to be able to use that streamlining program, you also have to provide supportive services and dedicate space for supportive services, which we are doing in our project with our community room, social services offices, et cetera. With respect to density and parking, again, as JP mentioned, under the state density bonus law, given that it's a 100% affordable project in a low vehicle mile traveled area, there is unlimited density. We're not going for unlimited density. Our disposition and development agreement can make that clear and limit us to a certain number of units. What we are proposing is 44 units. Again, we thought that was a pretty good balance between the other projects that the city had previously reviewed for the site, 27 not really being enough to justify the city's investment, 70 being out of character with the neighborhood. Our parking garage includes 54 parking spaces. That is more than the city can require under the supportive housing streamlined approval. Again, that supportive housing streamlined approval takes into consideration the fact that people who are occupying permanent supportive housing units typically don't own cars. So that we're providing 54 spaces, and the maximum the city can require under that program is 42 spaces. So then getting into the density bonus concessions, incentives, and waivers, I think JP had mentioned most of these. Again, that 4-inch wood window and door trim, we wouldn't be meeting. There is a prohibition on removing native oak trees. We have some native oak trees smack dab in the middle of our site. If that site's ever going to be developed into anything, we're going to have to remove some oak trees, and we're fine with what was presented here tonight in terms of the mitigation measures for that. I already touched upon the building height. Again, our building, the roof line would go up to the 37 feet with going up to as high as 47 feet for some of those architectural features that we have on the building. The rear setback, again, requesting from 20 feet to a reduction from 20 feet to 10 feet. Without that additional 10 feet, we would not be able to get the parking and the density in for the project. And then again, parking access. So I think, I can't remember if it's in the downtown specific plan or which document says that parking has to be accessed from side streets. But again, given the transportation impact study that was done, we think there should be parking access along East Cotati Avenue and not having all of the parking vehicular traffic end up on Charles. Next slide, I believe, is just questions.
Thank you so much. I'm going to open it up here in a moment for our questions and then for comments from the public and then further discussion from us. But I also want to say thank you to the city for kind of having a proactive step in, I know all of us were very concerned about that 5-story building, and this is a fabulous way in which we've shifted something that could have not been in front of us at all and just happened to something where the entire public is able to have a lot of input into what is happening. So I really appreciate that. Before I launch into my questions, what questions do my colleagues have? Ryan?
Is that, so the pictures with the blue, did you guys have any other options that you looked at for coloring that you would be able to show?
Not since the city planning meeting, I don't. We had different variations of blue. But that was the only one that, the blue one is the only one that we're presenting here tonight.
And that
Again,
suggestion.
it was really agreeing with the city council that it should be livelier and there should be some color introduced, but also not wanting to create an identity crisis for the building. I mean, I think they had, the city council, a couple members mentioned, gosh, what was the project? I forget the name now. Yeah, Frog Song, yeah. And so we did actually look at that, but we wouldn't be able, I mean, it would be a whole redesign of the architectural style of the project, we thought, to have introduced some of those colors and elements.
Okay. And then you mentioned that the project's going to require state funding.
Yeah, yes.
So what happens, because you have to apply for that, so what happens if that falls through?
Unfortunately, if you don't get it the first time, you try and try again.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes, unfortunately. I will say there are multiple state programs out there that the project would fit nicely into. So all of the programs have an annual cycle, though. So what I typically do on my projects is make them be as flexible as possible to be competitive under as many programs as possible. So for example, the 25% 2 bedrooms and the 25% 3 bedrooms is kind of sacrosanct in affordable housing. You can fit into as many boxes as possible with that unit mix. Also, the 25% permanent supportive housing makes you competitive. So I will, starting beginning of next year when the cycles open up for 2026, I'll be applying for as many projects as I can. We've been very lucky in that we have gotten funded in the first round of most of our state funding applications. Freebird development, I've been in the industry for 20 years, but Freebird's only been around for a handful of years, and so Freebird qualifies as an emerging developer for the state's financing sources, so there's a set aside of funding for emerging developers that I will go after for this project, but I wish I could say, I wish I could say right now that, what the specific timeline would be for the project, but it has been in the last, few years, and especially with federal funding going bye-bye. It's, if you don't succeed, you try and try again.
Yeah. And then with the 12 units, does Freebird manage that program, the supportive housing program, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with the North Bay Housing Coalition, North Bay Regional Center, but we are working with them on a project in Healdsburg that's under construction right now. And so North Bay Regional Center has the wait list of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities who are looking for housing and could fit into this project in terms of their incomes and ability to live independently. So they provide the referrals to the North Bay Housing Coalition, who then is the services provider who basically provides services to those residents to access the housing and retain the housing, and links them to a lot of the relationships that they already have, but just make sure that they're successful in living independently. So it's, again, a model that I've used on other projects before. In 2020, what year did we finish Monroe? 2023? Yeah, 2023. I finished a similar project that was 65 units in Santa Clara, so it was with the San Andreas Regional Center instead of the North Bay Regional Center, but very similar, 25% set aside for that population. It's a great project, and we haven't had any turnover yet. Those units have been leased up for 2 years now without any turnover in that population.
That's kind of all I have for right now. It would be nice to, I mean, so you guys kind of were you're kind of settling in on the blue color?
We like it, but that doesn't mean everybody likes it, so we are happy to, hear
Yeah.
feedback.
Okay, but you only looked at, did you kind of plug in some other colors into this just to see what it might look like, or?
I mean, I think we did look at like a rusty red kind of color, but thought the blue popped a little bit more. But we did look at like kind of rusty red and mustardy yellow, kind of a little bit more muted, not the like bright reds and yellows. And I think our over at Frog, sorry, I always get the name
Frog
wrong.
Song.
Yeah. But yeah, we're open for discussion.
Yeah, it would be nice, I mean, maybe for the council to bring them a couple other options to look at, just to kind of see how things look, compared to other colors.
We also did, we did play around with the, sorry, do you mind actually going back to the slides where the blue color is shown? Even though it's kind of scary in that picture.
It looks good on the screen we're looking at.
The color of your shirt's completely different on that one. Yeah, I was gonna say the shirt is not green. Well, maybe it is, but whatever. We did look at other colors with the blue, like the beige and the white. We looked at other colors for those to see like what would help the blue pop the most. And this is what we landed on.
Yeah, that looks good. I was just curious.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't like it, just.
No, colors is always it's always a good conversation to have because you never. There was the project that I mentioned in Santa Clara. It was funny. We HKIT was my architect on that project too, and we took a number of color studies to them, and they rejected them all, and they're like, "We want the San Jose Sharks." And the building ended up being the San Jose Sharks colors, and it actually works.
And yeah, it looks good. Are they? And then you said like explicitly there wouldn't be a liquor store in the retail. Obviously, it's going to be kind of market driven when it ends up going there. Do you have any other ideas of what?
Yeah, I mean, we really want a community serving use there. I've been talking to Damien about actually whether there could be a city use there, which would be ideal. So I've been really waiting to do a lot of outreach on that space until I think the city decides kind of whether they want that space or not. Again, my motto is always to be as flexible as possible, so it's designed in such a way that it could be, I think, as many as 3 spaces, as few as 1 space. We've heard a lot of interest about there being at least a portion of it being used as a library, or maybe a the library on wheels. I forget what it is, the traveling library. So we've heard everybody has wanted to see a civic serving use there. We're for financial feasibility, we're assuming 0 rents so that we can find a community serving use, so that it's not like an economics decision for us. And again, that's something like, for example, in the disposition and development agreement, I'm totally open to like putting parameters around what can be done there, because I'm not putting a liquor store in there. I'm not putting anything in there that the neighborhood does not see as an asset.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to be too prescriptive on what goes in there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good options, I'm sure.
I'm pretty, there's probably already some zoning code language somewhere that the real, the uses that nobody ever wants to see, we could specify those in the development and disposition agreement.
Yeah, has there been any conversation around that, internally?
Oh, I mean, it's been focused, as Robin mentioned, on trying to find a civic use to fit the space. There's been a lot of kind of broad level discussions, but nothing, we needed to get through this step and then get into more of the nuanced details on the DDA, frankly, so then that would allow Robin to understand that the decision doesn't have to be economic based.
Yeah.
And then they can go for kind of more specifics. There's been a lot of discussion even about the city being able to dictate that use, those types of things, but that's all to be worked out with the DDA.
The DDA?
Disposition and Development Agreement. It's
Yeah.
basically the agreement that the city gets into that allows the developer to develop on the city-owned land and sets the terms for how that's going to happen, whether it's an outright purchase, a long-term lease, or some version in between.
Do you know kind of where that stands right now?
Well, it's under negotiation right now between Robin and the city manager, and then ultimately the city council. It gets presented to them
Yeah.
for consideration.
And that's kind of what we're here for, is to talk about other conditions we might want in it.
Okay, that's all I got right now.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Is that okay? Okay. So I'm looking at the parking garage, and I see there's some spaces with EV indicated on them. Are those going to have actual chargers, or are they just going to be preferential parking for electric vehicles?
The state building code these days is pretty prescriptive as to what's required in terms of EV charging, and it's a moving target, so I don't want to quote anything right now because I'm sure I'll get it wrong unless it's off the top of your head. But there is a requirement for some of the spaces to have actual chargers, and then there's a requirement, I think maybe even as much as 50%, don't quote me on it, be pre-wired so they could have chargers in the future.
Okay.
So I think the ones that are on our, do you mind going back to the site plan? Keep going, keep going, keep going. There, oh, back, there you go. I think those are ones that actually have the equipment, because again, I believe we're at a place in the buildings code cycle right now where like 50% need to be pre-wired. I will say that my experience in affordable housing is that there are not that many residents that have EVs. We on all of my projects, we put in what's been required, and they're not getting used.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually caused. I don't want to get too technical, but it's caused a bit of a problem because you can't charge residents for charging their cars and maintain your tax credits, which is the funding that funds affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yet we want to be able to charge so they're not, people that aren't residents aren't coming in charging their cars for free. So it's a conundrum. Right now on my projects, though, that way that we're getting around it is that we are charging, but then we will reimburse any resident who is charged. They have to come and show us their, that they paid for it, and it's created kind of a bit of a mess. But anyway, I'm getting a little too wonky now.
So to reiterate, I guess they could have chargers, but we're not sure how many.
No, the ones that are there, I believe, the ones that are shown there are the ones that are required to have charging equipment.
Okay.
I was just trying to make the point that actually far more than the ones that are labeled as EV will actually have the wiring so that in the future, should we see a increase in
Got it.
ownership of
Okay.
EV cars, the infrastructure's already there, so you're not, digging out your parking garage
Yeah.
to put in the infrastructure later. It's just the actual charging stations not there.
Okay. One last question, kind of, Ryan already asked the questions that I had already, so kind of tailing on his financing question, when would work actually start on the project? Would you wait for that financing approval, or would you like remove the trees and start grading, assuming it's gonna get approved, or? how does that
Yeah,
work?
no, we would wait until we have all the financing in place, and we would not, usually what happens on a site like this that's owned by the local government is that we don't take possession of the land either until we close on our financing. So if we were successful in 2026 to get state funding for the project, we would be looking at the earliest construction start, again, being realistic, is early 2027.
Okay, thank you. Those are all
And
the
then
questions.
it typically takes us, for a project this size, about 16 to 18 months to go.
Okay, I think I saw somewhere in there like 24 months it should be completed by,
24 months is usually the time it takes to complete it and occupy it.
yeah, okay.
Although depending on what you're looking at, I always like to give myself wiggle room. So my financing, for example, when I finance projects, even though it's only going to take 16 to 18 months, the maturity date for the loans are all pushed out, so just to be conservative.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's all I have for right now, so.
Well, I really like the fact that you've really jumped the numbers of bicycle parking, which is, I think is great. And like you just said, that those residents usually don't own vehicles, but there's other ways of transportation, but that brings up safety concerns for me. On Cotati Avenue, there's the existing crosswalk. Has there been any talk about having one of the flashing signals to help people cross that spot? Like we have on Old Red?
Are you talking about crossing East Cotati at Charles? I believe that has no.
The next one
flashing signal.
isn't it the next one down that has one, or is it that one?
I think both of them do.
Both of them do? I didn't think the first one did. That's why I was curious.
Look to one of our advocates, Neil Hancock, who walks
Neil?
and lives right there for his advice, or what he has to say about that, but I thought it was there.
Yes, there's a flashing light that's on there.
On the second one by the creek, but, oh, there is on both, okay. I wasn't sure about that. And I know you mentioned about burying the utilities on Charles Street. We currently have speed bumps on Charles Street to slow traffic because people cut through that. Are the speed bumps going to be maintained?
Yes, and then one other thing to point out, if you could go back to the site plan, and you could just stay on the site plan, that I didn't mention that it's very hard to see, but upper right corner in that crosswalk that you were just talking about, our plans do show, if you can see that, kind of bumping out a little bit there to kind of narrow
Right.
there, because that's a traffic calming measure to try to slow the cars down before they get to the crosswalk as well.
Another question on the parking. I noticed there's 4 existing handicap parking spots. Are any of those van accessible? For ramps on the side?
One is, yeah.
Okay, because I just was looking at, they all look like the same size, so it's hard to tell sometimes when you look at these plot maps.
I think if you look at the one in the bottom left corner is the van accessible one.
Okay, thank you. And then the second story deck playground, I love that. My first thing that popped in my head was safety of kids being playing up that so high, so I'm glad to see that we have that 6-foot fence. Now, the way I'm reading it, the 6-foot fence is from the top of the planter up, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
As a mom of an 8-year-old and 2 5-year-olds, I appreciate that comment.
And then one last question, because I know with a lot of single people, especially people that have disabilities, their service animals or non-service animals, pets, are extremely important to them. Are there been any type of restrictions on that for people living in these units?
No, there's no restrictions on pets other than you can't have any mean animals. I don't know how to put it better than that. No, there's actually the state funding requires that be pet friendly. There
Do
will.
they do, when, in that being friendly, do they actually list breed types?
I think they do actually. I think they
I know
do.
pit
And
bulls-
I know pit bulls are on there, but I didn't want
They get a
to.
bad rap.
I don't. I know. Yeah, I have a good friend who raises pit bulls. So, but I do believe pit bulls are on the list. But I didn't want to name any other breeds in order to not offend anybody.
And
it's not my.
I know. We come
Talk
across
to our government.
that a lot. My personal preference, I love the blue. I think the blue looks really good with the tans and the browns. I think they complement each other. So I thought that was a nice color accent. But otherwise, you don't like blue?
I
think-
actually like the blue. I like the blue a lot.
But
I
do you
mean, I
like the
didn't
blue
like it
down
up
here,
there.
or do you like the
No,
blue
I
up
like the blue down here, and I like the blue in the packets.
Yeah. Considering previous project that we looked at on this site, I love this. I think it's fabulous. I think it's going to fit downtown really nice. I had the opportunity of being around thousands of people over the last weekend, and they were asking me, and I was showing them pictures on the phone, and I got a lot of thumbs up.
Okay, that's good to
So
hear.
thank you.
That's very good to hear.
Yeah, again, I like the blue. I think it's great. I like the playgrounds. A question, and just my own ignorance and unfamiliarity with it, if it's restricted to individuals who are over 55, does that mean, can they have, like, if they have grandchildren or something that live with them, or if they have children, can the children live there?
It's not restricted. This isn't an income or an age restricted project.
It's not an age-restricted
It's
project.
No,
just
if that's in
income.
your packet, that's
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
Income and then,
It's
supportive
income restricted, but
needs.
not age restricted.
Yeah.
All units except one-bedroom manager's unit will be deed restricted as affordable for at least 55 years.
Not, yeah.
I was so confused why we weren't talking about this. I'm sorry.
But that does bring up a good point. What exactly does that mean for the 55 years?
That means, so there will be a regulatory agreement on the project. That means that, actually, sorry, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so if you can read that or read that. These are the incomes that the project would be targeting. And so for 55 years, we wouldn't be able to make it like a market rate project or go increase the incomes more than, so every year HUD publishes essentially the then current area median incomes, and so you can increase the rent to account for that fluctuation. Even then, we generally, in my projects, we don't raise rent more than 3% a year, even though lately the incomes have gone up more than that. But so this gives you an idea of what incomes would qualify for based on the number of people in the household.
Is there a breakdown of what units are going to be allocated to 30%, 50%?
I don't have that in this presentation. And again, it won't be a set. The one thing that I know for sure is that 25% will be at 30% of AMI, because again, that's keeping it as flexible as possible for the multiple various funding sources we will go after. But other than that, I like to keep it as flexible as possible within the 80%, because different funding programs have different income requirements. There's some that require you to have 80% AMI units. There's some that don't let you have 80% AMI. It's like for example, that would be like a perfect example of what would go into the development and disposition agreement is that we would like to keep it as flexible as possible so that we could change the income mix for the purposes of the funding sources, but then once you get funded under a funding source, your income mix is locked in.
Okay. Will this help satisfy our mid-level RENA numbers?
It'll satisfy the RENA levels, or RENA numbers for all units that we end up serving at that income level. So we do not currently have any extremely low income units, although I believe 30 of our 60 very low income are supposed to be extremely low. 25% AMI would satisfy that. So those units would help with the extremely low allocation. And then we have very few low-income units in the pipeline right now, and up to 80% satisfies the low-income RENA allocation.
Okay, thank you.
I was just gonna say, for what it's worth, I like the color scheme on page 145, but
What's page 145?
like kind of the more tan one.
Okay, the one that was presented to council?
Yeah, was that the original one?
The one that they told us to get, well, we're like, to put some color on.
Yeah, so,
I think you might be in the minority here.
yeah,
I like that one better too, personally. So.
good luck.
But hey, you know what, it's paint, if we hate it, we can repaint it, I guess.
Well, we can also, when we go back to council, we'll have the before and after, and they can still vote on the before.
Is there still street side parking on East Cotati?
Yes, there
Okay.
is. I believe, in full transparency, we're losing a couple spots, right? Yeah, but,
But we could
Yeah.
still reason why.
yeah.
Okay. Is there any solar?
Yes, there will be solar. So again, I wish I could say this as in like I'm doing it because because it's a choice, but it's actually not even a choice. The state building code requires for 3-story buildings for you to have solar that covers 100% of the projected residential usage. So there'll be a pretty robust solar system on the roof of this building. How can it increase beyond that?
Increase to your commercial uses.
Yeah.
Is there enough roof space to meet that need?
My guess is yes.
You're filling the roof space that's capable of having solar, so parts of the roof shade each other that are just not feasible, then that's not counting towards the requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Noah, question for you. So we're going to, there won't be any street parking on East Cotati Avenue in front of this project, correct?
There is street parking.
Currently now, will there continue to be?
Correct. Yeah, there's a
Okay.
couple spaces get lost with the bump outs to accommodate stormwater, and then also the garage entrance point. But
Okay.
there is still street parking
My
adjacent to the project.
concern was, for decades, we've had the flower guy there.
That's why I wanted to reason why. We need
kind
our
of-
flowers, okay? This is a necessary element to my life.
On the topic of the garage entrance, I emailed Noah earlier, and I haven't had a chance to check my email if he responded. But in the traffic study on the lane merge, there's a paragraph, it says, it's noted, it's page 19 of the study. It says, it's noted that staff has indicated a preference for limiting access to right turns in and out. But given the lack of a demonstrated need to prohibit left turns, this approach is not recommended. I skipped half of the middle part, but basically, I'm just wondering, can anyone here provide some additional context as to why staff recommended, or they had a preference for limiting access to right turns in and out? Like, I have my own assumptions of why that would be, but I'm just curious if there was another.
Sure, I'll touch on that.
Specific reason.
So at the city council meeting in December last year, there was a fairly robust discussion about accessing onto East Cotati, mostly exiting, especially left turning out of there to go towards Old Redwood Highway. So it wasn't so much a preference, but it was actually an ask to the traffic engineers that they please look at the, controlling those movements, what it would take to do that, if it's necessary. We didn't want that to be excluded from the traffic study. So that's where that came from.
Okay. And it sounds like we're going to move forward with the plan that we have, where we have the entrances on East Cotati and Charles?
So staff likes the entrance locations. We do expect to have a pretty robust conversation about traffic and circulation with the city council.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm just thinking, rush hour, that area gets, not even rush hour, like, when I'm just like trying to go to Oliver's, and the merge is crazy, and there's, everyone gets confused, and so I can just imagine if you have people turning right or whatever on that, it's just gonna make it more of a mess.
Yeah, I mean, as JP mentioned, when we hired them to do the transportation impact study, we knew that was a concern. So we said, please, study this, whether it makes sense to do a right-hand turn. I'm personally agnostic. I can go, doesn't matter, we can do either way. I think the transportation consultant felt like people were gonna make that left-hand turn anyway. And that the only way really to prevent them from making that left-hand turn would be to put up some kind of barrier there, which I think they thought would make conditions less safe rather than more safe. So having said that, yeah, we expect when we go back to council to have that conversation again. I'll do whatever the city wants us to do there. It doesn't.
And,
matter
it's
to us.
theoretically not that many people, like I think it said like 16 to 19 trips would be added from the units. Like, it's not like it's gonna be people going in and out all day long, potentially, so. Okay. Thank you. Let's open it up to public comment.
Can
Oh.
I ask one more
Yes,
question, please?
absolutely. Yeah, I have one more too.
I know with any construction project, there's going to be noise. We can't avoid that. But we do have a senior complex basically across the street. So are we going to have any type of restrictions on starting and stopping hours, taking consideration the senior housing that's existing there?
So it's always a discussion point, you either limit the hours and days and then the duration of the construction goes longer, or you allow longer hours, more days to shorten the overall duration of the project. The zoning code has parameters that generally say Monday through Friday. Additional time can be granted. If the city council wants to provide input on that, we could build that into the DDA, or we could leave it to the zoning process where the public works director can grant that additional time. There may be instances regardless of that to accommodate certain types of construction, concrete deliveries, those types of things where the flexibility will be granted.
Thank you.
One last tiny question. So I want to say you mentioned offices for the supportive housing, the people supporting the people who live there. I don't recall seeing that in the plan. So did I miss it in the plans, or like where would that be located?
Do you mind going back to the site plan?
And follow-up question.
I actually don't remember if we left it on the first floor or put it on the second floor, but I believe it's with the property management, or no, it's on the other side of the property management. So if you look at the lobby, on the corners, the property management office, and then mid-block, you'll see the other light blue triangle is the property, is the social services office.
Got it, okay.
I was gonna say, we typically separate them from the property management office because a lot of times our social service providers might be, helping, really are helping them retain housing, address any lease violations, et cetera. And so we want residents to feel comfortable going into that office, and sometimes they don't feel comfortable when it's right with the property management office, so we generally separate them to some extent.
I see. And then would that be like staff's, or I guess, who would fill that space?
A North Bay
people that
Housing
you're-
Coalition,
Okay.
a member from their staff would be there.
Okay.
And typically, it's not a full-time job. On other projects with a similar population, it's about a third of an FTE. They have office hours, but they're not there 100% of the time. They also host different celebrations, provide different seminars, health and wellness seminars, et cetera, but it's not a full-time FTE with that population.
Okay.
Some of my other projects that have homeless populations, it's a different story. We have one FTE, actually 2.
Okay, thank you. All my questions.
All right, I'd love to open it up to public comment now. Does anyone, if you have a public comment, please come forward. Hi.
Yes, good evening, Commission. Neil Hancock. Looks to be a great project. I live about a block away from this, across on Arthur Street, and this is definitely one of the crossings that I use a lot. And it's improved greatly over the almost 30 years I've been here now in Cotati. So what really works is having the median there, which is staying. I have seen some vehicular crashes there move into the crossing. First car slows down, so this is vehicles that are traveling east. First car slows down, the second car slows down, and the third car has gone in. So that wasn't in the last 5 years. What I do notice, I am very cautious on crossing this with really making sure that the drivers' vehicles see me. And I think it's the seeing that's critical, being able to see a pedestrian. So one of the comments here, or one of the observations, is there appears to be a street light just on where pedestrians would be standing. There's the bioswale that's in there, which is great. Necking that bit, I think, is really valuable. And of course, there is a state requirement now for sight lines. So, you know, that bioswale, I think, fills in that as well. But having a pole right next to where somebody might be standing on that sidewalk ready to cross, I think the pole would be, if we could, move it somewhere else. But in crossing that in the evenings, what really works is on Charles Street, there is a street light there that shines down on the road. And I think that really makes anybody crossing very visible to cars that are coming west along East Cotati Avenue and turning into Charles Street. So I think having a street light there to shine on the crossing, but of course you don't want any of the street light coming into the buildings. So there may be some combination of trying to do a downlight or even connecting the downlights, a street light that might go to the flashes when somebody is walking across there. So the flashes which are on that junction and also on the Laguna crossing are good, but vehicles coming round from east, from Old Redwood Highway, coming south, crossing round there and merging, I don't think they see people very well on that area. So even an extended flasher that is a little bit more west and the next bioswale might work. Anyway, I'm just throwing out ideas there that keeping the visibility to people on that crossing might be a good idea. But otherwise, it looks to be a pretty nice project. And the other part that might work for Charles Street is have more of instead of having a speed bump, the newer way, I think, is also to have a table in there, something that's a bit longer, because vehicles definitely come along East Cotati Avenue, turn into this fast if there's nobody there, and continue to the speed bump. So thank you very much. Good project.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock. Good paper, rock, scissors it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here, Commission. Lori Ann Barber. I live at Frock Song. I made a couple notes, and hopefully I can keep in time. In terms of the color, I actually really like the blue, and I will just a little anecdote that the architect for Frog Song told us that he wasn't going to ask us about color, that nobody could ever agree on color. He was just going to give us our colors. So we didn't pick the yellow and the red, but we've come to embrace them. But I do actually really like color, and I thought the blue was nice. I also overall just like the project. I'm happy that it's hopefully coming forward. I think it's wonderful that it includes some supportive housing. I also have a brother with developmental disability, so it's close to my heart as well. it is a little sad about the fact that the affordable housing community has low EV ownership because they are a more affordable vehicle for them to own. So that's a little bit of a shame, but I'm glad there's going to be charging in there for that. I have a little bit of concern about the viability of a lot more retail in Cotati. It sounds like much of this might end up being city used or not actual retail, but Frog Song has retail and it's all full right now and we're doing okay, but there have been times when it's hard to, there are vacancies around Cotati, so it's like, I don't know how much more retail we need, although I know it brings in revenue, so that's a good thing. I just, a little comment about the proposed, or the bump outs that are just before Charles Street. I'm sometimes a driver of an EV, sometimes a pedestrian, sometimes a cyclist, as I'm sure many of you are. And I understand the bump outs, they supposedly calm traffic down and make a shorter distance for pedestrians, but they're terrible for cyclists. You're in a bike lane and then all of a sudden there's a bump out in front of you. So I don't know how far that one goes out if it blocks the bike lane, but just a thought in general, not saying it shouldn't go there, but just a thought in general. And I was just curious, it mentioned that the project was kind of environmentally conscious, which I'm sure it is, and we heard about the solar panels, but I don't know what other features it has that might fit that, so I was just curious to hear about that. But again, looks like a great project. I'm glad we are seeing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Robin Birdfeather, one of the seniors who live right across the street. And I'm wondering why you didn't give us a Cotati Charles Street view. That wasn't in your, okay. Because we come in and out of that driveway all the time. And I think we put in our input about moving the egress and so on away from Charles Street, but it can't really happen because of East Cotati Avenue isn't a way to put the traffic in and out. So I guess that's okay, we'll deal with it. I'm wondering, well, I like the color blue. Depends on the blue. Let's see. Oh, there's no, all right. I'm wondering about the height. You mentioned that I came in late, sorry. There's a steady height thing going on, 37 feet, is that it? That's the top, except for the tower? Because that's a little looming over us, we have a flat, grassy place right now. Although we don't look directly on it, depending on where you live on our property. Oh, shoot. I didn't bring a pencil with me. Make notes. Okay, oh yeah, sure. I do not want to see a liquor store in any of those retail spots. Thank you very much. There's plenty of us right across the street. We're all 65 or older. I'm 90 myself. Yeah, don't drop your jaw too far. It's possible to look good later as you get older, okay? I'm just saying. Do the right thing. Anyway, a lot of us have been around, drunks in our past. Quite a few of us. And we don't want to see anything like that coming up. Okay, thanks a lot. Good project.
Thank you. Robin has promised us no liquor stores. Robin's promised no liquor stores.
This Robin.
Oh, sorry. That's true. Anyone else with public comment? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our Zoom attendees. Carla?
Thank you, Chair Moffett. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you would like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon or dial *9. Chair Moffett, that will end public comment.
Thank you. Did I have another public comment? can reopen it. No? Okay. Well, colleagues, we have some recommendations for approval that the city council is asking for our input on. Do we have any other conditions of approval that you would like to see that are not already in here on packet page 19?
I don't know if this was in here or not, but, and you touched on this when you said you guys don't break ground until funding's secured. Is there, could we kind of maybe codify that in the agreement, or at least put that as a recommendation to council?
Yeah, if there's concerns over, it sounds like the concern might be kind of a start-stop issue with construction.
Yeah, like Hotel Katati issue.
Yeah, sure. So I think that could absolutely be put into the DDA or a recommendation from the commission. I will say, as Robin has described it, Freebird has described it, it's much more typical to wait to start construction until the financing is fully in place and able to cover the complete cost.
Yeah, I would just put that out as a recommendation to council.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because, you know, if they're gonna have to cut down the trees and grade, like, I don't want them to cut down the trees and not get financing for 3 years, and we could have had those trees to look at the whole time.
Agreed. Gosh, I'm good. I think, you know, that's a good point about that light post and just wanting to ensure that the lighting plan and doesn't intercede with sight lines, especially of pedestrians. If we could just.
Just a comment on that, like, so the DSP, the downtown specific plan, dictates the type of lighting. So what you're gonna see at that corner is that, that standard acorn decorative style lamp that you see throughout the downtown. Pardon?
I know it well. There's one in my yard.
There's one in your yard. There you go. And it has, and I think the newer ones, they're LED, and they do have more of a downlit, unless you're going to tell me it comes right in your bedroom window. But my understanding, and where we're moving towards, is more of a dark sky type lighting. And so it should have those elements to it. But it's a standard, engineering standard, which lighting gets used in that downtown specific plan area.
I do think the point, though, of making sure the pole itself doesn't interfere with the sight line with the crosswalk is an important one.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, come on back up if you, yeah, actually do please come back up so our Zoom attendees can hear you too.
Yeah, I was just gonna point out that right now that has been that's vacant land that doesn't have other light on it, but there will be a building there now with lights on the building. We're not like lighting up the sky, but just I think the fact that there will be a building there, some people will have their lights on, maybe even all night, who knows? But there will be the natural, you know, the light that's coming from the building as well that will help kind of illuminate that area better than it is illuminated now. And there will be more lighting in general. But yes, I agree to make sure that the pole is not blocking any sight lines.
Yeah, in the recommended conditions of approval page, so packet page 26, it says streetlights shall be city standard decorative type in accordance with city design standards, and the developer shall provide additional streetlights for replacement purposes. 5% of the total is otherwise approved. It's number 40. Maybe I should have said that before I started reading. But it sounds like you're going to give us extra as well for in case some break down. Is that part of the condition?
I think they're only going to be installing one, so I think the answer would probably be no.
Oh, okay.
That's boilerplate language. So oftentimes you'll see when we do a whole subdivision, basically, if one gets damaged and we don't have a spare to install, then we would go without a light while we wait for production. So that's how Public Works ensures that we can keep adequate lighting throughout the city.
Okay.
That's it for me. Yeah, I think it's a great project. Looks really good. Excited for it.
I concur. No, we're just throwing our ideas at you.
We appreciate the feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation as well. Really appreciate that. We're going to move on in our agenda to reports by staff.
Thank you, Chair Moffett. Just briefly, staff wants to highlight a couple upcoming items. First of all, thank you for kind of your patience through the summer. What I thought was going to be a very busy summer, kind of a lot of our projects' progress stalled, and it seems like it's pushing more into the fall and winter, so we do anticipate not canceling nearly as many meetings as we have the last couple months. So thank you for remaining engaged and everyone being really responsive when we do have some items coming before you. The city has set the date for the housing fair. You'll recall in our housing element, we've committed to doing an annual housing fair. This year, we're going to focus on first-time homebuyers. It is September 13th from 10 to 2, and it will be at the Cotati Rohnert Park Library. We're partnering with the city of Rohnert Park, who also has the same requirement in their housing element, and so we're bringing in some local lenders, Redwood Credit Union. The Housing Land Trust will be doing a presentation on what it takes to kind of meet lending requirements for affordable homes, but then also we'll have some market rate presentations as well. So anybody who's interested in kind of first-time home buyer experiences, opportunities, and kind of strategies to get there, that's the target audience for this year's housing fair. Again, September 13th, 10 to 2. The same day, there is a celebration of the Christoph Running Fence Run. This is our first one that's happening. There's a local nonprofit who decided to celebrate the art installations of the running fence by starting a run in Cotati, and there's a 5K or a 10K. There's information available on various websites if you just search for the Running Fence Run, but that's also on the same day. So maybe tough to do both depending on how fast you are, but I also want to highlight we set the date for what's going to be the second annual Climate Ready Cotati Fest, and that is March 28th, 2026. So we're definitely planners in our department and looking to the future to set the dates. But that was really, heard a lot of positive feedback on Community Development Department's first Climate Ready Cotati Fest. And so we are looking to make that an annual event. The staff is running that, and March 28th, 2026 is the date. So if you're interested, then save the date for that. And it will be also at the Smart Station. So we're trying to leverage that location, allow people to get there without having to drive, and then also just get more activity in that part of town as well. And then lastly, I just want to introduce our new planning technician, Pema Sherpa. She joins us after a robust recruitment effort. She beat out all other applicants, and we're really fortunate to have her. And she's doing a great job jumping right in where Eli left off. And so you'll hear more from Pema in the future. We'll be finding some opportunities for her to present to commission and council in the future. That concludes the department report.
Just out of curiosity, how many applicants did you have?
Oh, there was a lot.
There was a survey that went out about the plaza. Are you familiar with that? Did you hear about that?
I believe it was a Public Works
It's Public
survey
Works?
about CIP priorities, I believe.
Okay. And that was talking about, just one of my friends mentioned it to me. I hadn't even heard about it or saw it. I was just curious if you knew anything about it or the results or anything.
I'm not aware of the results or where that is. I can get some more information if you want to shoot me an email.
Okay.
I can track it down.
Cool.
Was it about the reunification?
That's what he said. Yeah, I didn't see it. I was just curious. And then, what was that one initiative? Was it Cool Cotati, that one initiative?
Yeah, so we've been talking about kind of a marketing effort for Cotati to the development community, just to let them know how cool we are.
Right.
And how easy to work with. Again, that was the working title, so we're still workshopping that. We're planning on probably getting that going in the fall. Cool. So we're right now doing some of the background work, some of the foundation work. You'll see some changes to our website, kind of trying to help people who are interested in development or how they can use their property, kind of streamline the way people get information. Mm-hmm. We're going to be creating an ombudsman position in our department, keeping existing staff, but just trying to allocate our resources towards somebody who wants to start a business, has dedicated resources to them to be able to answer all their questions and those types of things. So those are starting to roll out, but we're doing the groundwork right now before we really elevate it.
Y'all are very cool.
All right, question on the first-time homebuyer event. How is that being marketed or communicated?
Yeah, so we are using all of our traditional outreach efforts, so the city newsletter, our social media feeds, and the website advertisements, and then City of Rohnert Park is doing the same. And then everyone who we've invited to table, I think we're gonna have upwards of 20 vendors. A subset of them we've kind of have called our marketing partners, and so we've asked them to also reach out to all of their marketing lists. We have a housing interest list that we'll do an e-blast to. So basically all the channels that we have, and then also trying to amplify through partners who are attending and presenting with us.
Okay, great. And where is it located again, or where is it going to be held?
At the library.
Library, okay. Well,
I was just curious about a couple projects and wondering if y'all had updates about them. What's going on with Hotel Katati?
The hotel?
Yes.
Oh, as I mentioned, they started construction without having all financing in place. We've been answering questions from lenders. It's our understanding that they're in the home stretch of closing on the financing needed to be able to fund the project, but that's what we've been told by the developer. But I know there's weekly calls between the developer and the city manager, so they've definitely stayed engaged with us.
Okay, excellent.
yeah, oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to go on to other projects, but if you have a
Well,
Katati,
yeah,
Hotel Katati
Hotel
question.
Katati, the framing or whatever that they've put up over the winter, is that like trash now, or are they gonna still use that?
So their structural engineer will make that determination and provide documentation when they submit, before we can issue their building permits. That'll have to be addressed.
Okay, yeah, because it's been sitting out for a few winters now, and.
There's cement frames. They'll be taken away, but still, yeah. Anyways.
Got it, okay,
Yeah.
so it's not just like plywood that's just like
It's the frame for the
Okay,
cement.
okay, that makes me feel better, because I was like, that looks really rickety.
Yeah,
If
it
it's
is.
just
It's just the whole,
Got it, okay.
Curious about, are we calling it Pink Viking? Flavin? I'm looking right at you, JP.
Yeah, so at the last meeting at the city council, there were several items there. One was the approval of the final map, the final subdivision map. There was also the subdivision improvement agreement and the affordability agreement. All were approved by city council at their last meeting. So now they can basically move to start to pull permits for grading. We'd like to see them get going, but it sounds like they're still pulling together their funding and stuff to make that whole project work. But it's ready to go.
We put a condition on that I think the city council approved as well. Obviously, we put a recommendation for a condition on that they check in with that one neighbor about the hill that they had already kind of had been previously excavated in the previous subdivision.
Yeah, my understanding is they did have those meetings, yeah.
My understanding is they have not.
Is that they have not.
They have not.
Well, I appreciate hearing that because that's contrary to what the
Actually,
information I had.
could guarantee they have not.
Okay.
And if you would like me to ask the homeowner to contact you, they will.
They can for sure contact me, but I'm going to be making a phone call first thing tomorrow.
It would be very helpful if we had their contact information, though, if they would reach out to us,
Yes.
the homeowner.
I'm sure they will. And then Lasker? I
So-
really liked that project. How's that going?
So they just recently requested and we approved an extension on, basically, the application's incomplete. So we requested additional information in order for us to review it. We gave them 6 months in order to provide that information. But they have not at this point, so they asked for another 6 months. and we granted them that application. So I think the deadline now is for them to submit by November. It's typical for us to grant those extensions when people ask for them.
We call it a freeze. So midstream in the review process, issues occur on the development team side, and they can ask for a 6-month pause or a freeze in the review of their project. You know, it's not really beneficial from the city side to just reject or formally deny a project that's intending to move forward but is having some type of issue that's preventing it. And so we typically grant those. There have been some where ultimately we do expire them or essentially deny the application, and that would force them to resubmit formally.
And then Katati Village and related projects, and particularly that abandoned greenhouse that has had kind of issues in the past. Alder.
I'm not sure.
The
You know
former
that-
nursery is a little bit past Alder on the right side. Is that the greenhouse? that
No,
you're-
the one on the left side that's kind of abandoned and has had, you know, folks kind of squatting in it before. There's been some fire issues. I just know that the neighbors there had kind of brought up some concerns.
I'm not sure what parcel you're talking about.
In the Katati Village?
Is that
So-
across the street from Oliver's?
No, Alder.
So,
Behind Acre Pizza and Jane's Dispensary. There's that the large lot there.
So
There's that
the
one.
only fire I'm aware of in that vicinity occurred at the Reds Recovery Room, which that's been
No.
completely demolished and redeveloped as Acre
Yeah.
Pizza, et cetera. There's only one parcel behind that development that's in the city, and after that, it's all county.
When I said greenhouse, I meant the house that is painted green.
Oh,
Sorry,
Thank you.
not a greenhouse.
Abandoned
Sorry.
greenhouse.
A residential house that is
Greenhouse.
painted green.
Sure.
Sorry. It's
thank
like
you.
me saying
Thank you
55
for
I know
acres.
which one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's green. Yeah.
It's on Monahan's parcel, yeah.
An
There were
abandoned
2
greenhouse
rooms
sounds
there,
fun.
and now there's just that one.
Yeah, so that is Katati Village 2 is the site. It was purchased by developers who, when they bought it, they said they had a long kind of list of projects in their queue already, so they weren't intending to be able to get to that project for several years. If residents have concerns over that home, please have them contact us. We have not received any complaints. So if we don't get complaints, we generally aren't aware of the issues. People can file a code enforcement investigation form on the city's website, then call us directly. Any way to engage with us is the best way to get us to be able to do something about it.
Got it, thank you.
And the police, if there's illegal activity there, because I know that they do patrol that area for that specific reason.
And I'll just, for the project specifically, as I mentioned, Katati Village 1 and 2 have not, don't intend to move forward in the near future just because of the development constraints, basically the developer's capacity. They're building out a couple other projects in other communities right now, but Redwood Row, which is the site kind of south of Lowe's and west of the restaurant, has been moving completely full steam ahead since approved by the city council. They're in with their final map right now and improvement plans and grading permits to start construction. So they have not slowed down at all since they've been approved or recommended for approval by the planning commission.
That's great. Any other questions for staff before we move to our own reports?
Kind of on the Redwood Row topic, I drove by that lot several weeks ago, and it looks like that big oak tree in the middle is dead.
Thank you for bringing that up. It's not just that oak tree that's in the middle, it's the oak trees that are right behind the restaurant as well. So, there's this new disease, not a disease, it's like it's
Is
a
it
boring
sudden-
insect that as it bores, it spreads a fungus. It's only been a couple years in this area, but it's wreaking havoc on oak trees from Napa to Sonoma County. and that tree is dead. And as well, we're probably going to give them a permit to cut down two of the other trees behind the Chinese restaurant there, because right now we want to stop that from spreading as quick as possible. Is anything that we can do, which could just wipe out the oak. So it's some sort of European boring bug, beetle.
Yeah, boring beetle.
Yeah, and so that's the problem, and it is dead.
Oh, yeah, I was hoping I was wrong, because in the winter, it looked just dormant, but now I'm like, "Ooh, that's not good."
It's something that all of Cotati residents should be aware of. It's relatively new. We just heard about it from the arborist, and it seems that it is increasing. The spread is going exponentially with how fast oak species in town are getting.
Oh,
Yeah, we lost one in a neighborhood. Was that the one that they're gonna try to preserve?
yeah.
They built their whole project around it.
Yeah, the whole park was centered
Yeah,
around it.
that's
So
a bummer.
do you know what they're gonna do instead, or have we
We're
not talked
exploring
about it yet?
options.
Okay.
They've talked about being interested in trying to transplant another oak tree, but we don't think that's a good
One
idea.
of the ones from this lot?
Well, but if they're gonna just be reinfected by the same,
Right.
so we're exploring options with them, trying to do something that's thoughtful, but also that doesn't maintain the problem or continue to have.
That might be some good information to put into the water bill.
Correct.
A little article about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, some mitigation efforts, yeah, what we can do.
The story that I heard is that got spread to this area in somebody's firewood.
In somebody's firewood?
Yeah, that they bought firewood in from outside area, which is not untypical, but that's how it got into this particular area.
Is it all oak species, or just like the valley oak or coast live oak, or is it?
I don't think it affects the coast live oak.
Okay.
But definitely the valley oak is susceptible to that beetle.
Bummer. That's all my questions. I swear I'm done. How about reports by planning commission? Moving on. Anyone have a report? You're good? We're good? All right. Information received after the agenda was posted?
We had those updated conditions of approval, which were provided by to the commission on the dais, and copies were made available to the applicant and in the back of the room for the public.
With the fees? Oh, hey, I'm glad I asked. I almost didn't ask that question. I was like, but I'm glad I did. All right, well, with that, it is one last thing.
8:07. Oh, yes.
Welcome, Pima.
You're welcome.
Happy to have you. All right, we'll call the meeting adjourned.